Hello, this is Captain Christopher Sage of the 137th Wing in Oklahoma City, and this video is here for a detailed overview of getting the Goo database set up and exactly what you need to do in order to do that. I've created now a USAF FM Goo community page. Please go out there, start with that. Hopefully some of the answers to any of your questions are out there, but you're going to want to begin with the Goo database. In a previous video I described how to download that and extract it. If you haven't done that yet, please go watch the first video so you can get those instructions. For purposes of this video, it's going to assume that you've already got your Goo database extracted to your C drive and that it's already set up and ready to go. So the first thing that you're going to want to do before you do anything is you're going to want to take this CRIS query and you're going to want to import it into your profile, modify it, and run the CRIS query and export the results. You're going to want to modify the query parameters to match your unit. So modify the OAC band and any other parameters as necessary and unique to your unit. I do not have CRIS. This video is being recorded on my home computer, and I do not have CRIS capabilities at home, so nor do I have recording capabilities at my desk at my unit. So you're going to have to just sort of export out of CRIS without a video demo on how to do that, but hopefully we all know how to do that. Once you've imported the query, ran the report, again, taking great care not to modify the order of any of the fields or add fields or delete fields. Just modify the query parameters, but once you're able to do that, export the output to an Excel file, and that's going to be here in this data sources. So once you've done that, you'll export your Goo data. It should look just like this right here, and you've got your Goo data ready to go. So you don't really need to do anything here. I'm just opening it up to give you an example of what it should look like, but this should be exactly what spits out of your CRIS query. So all you really need to do is save it out there and overwrite that file. You don't need to do anything other than that. As long as that's been updated, you're good to go. You're also going to need to get with your FSS folks in their system and run a query in their system. I believe it is also called CRIS, and you're going to need to get this personnel listing or alpha roster of your unit's personnel or your wing or your base's personnel. Get a list of all of those folks so you can also save that file. Ask them to send it to you in Excel and to send it to you on a periodic basis. You don't really need to do this very often. Our unit does it about once a month, but you can do it as frequently as your FSS folks will set it up for you. And again, if you've got a lot of turnover on your wing, a lot of people coming and going all the time, then you may want to update this so you're getting your folks into the database as quickly or so the information is as current as possible. But basically, once you've got this file and this file set up, basically that's all that it involves. Is you're going to save those files, just overwrite the ones that are there, and you should be good to go, and then you can start using the database. A couple other things. So on your initial setup, one of the things that you might want to do, and this is a best practice, what I would recommend is once you've got your alpha roster in place, run a quick pivot table on it. I'll just demonstrate that real quick. Insert a pivot table and create a pivot table that has all of your PAS organizations. So once you have those, then you can open up this other file here, your group list, and you can update that. And the whole point of this actually imports into the database as well. So what you can do is paste the output of your unit's files, and then you can go in there and create some definitions here of what wing or group that they belong to, whether they're OG, wing staff, mission support group, maintenance group, or what have you. So you can create your groups, and you can also create your resource advisor linkages to each of those groups. Like I said, the database will import this every time, but so you would go here and make those changes as those linkages change, and that becomes important because as you spit some of these reports out, you can get some groupings by RA, or you can utilize and leverage this setup in the database as well. So again, best practice is to run a pivot table on your personnel, get a list of all the different PAS organizations, and then create these linkages, save the file, and once you've got those 3 files ready to go, you've got an alpha roster, you've got GU data in your group list set up, then you should be good to go to open the database. And all you really have to do here is click on the import data. You click import, it's going to say ensure that you have saved both your alpha roster GU data tables to the designated location. Also ensure you've updated the group list table for any changes before proceeding. It'll say that every time. You'll hit OK. It'll do its thing. It'll tell you your data is complete and records have been archived. And once you've got that, your GU is up to date. So at this point right here, if you have successfully created your GU export data source and your personnel alpha roster data source, and you've put them to the right locations, once you hit import and you get to here, this will magically create all of these reports for you. So you should be up and running right at this point to get set up to start to look at some of your reports. Like I said, there's some other reports in here that I don't have linkages on. So you may have to go in here. For those of you that are familiar with Access, go into File and into Options and go to your current database and get down here to these navigation options. And you can unhide and display navigation pane, and you can see some of the other features in there. I'm going to go ahead and close the database and get back in it. And hopefully it'll show. There we go. So here is all the different elements in here. Again, I don't recommend that you do a whole lot to any of this stuff. You're likely to break it if you're fooling around with some of this stuff. But some of the things that you will need to do, you'll probably want to get in here and change some of these things. These are contacts at our unit. You probably want to remove our badge. In fact, I might go ahead and save a copy out there that doesn't have some of that stuff. But I wanted to give you an example so you could change things as you needed to. But basically what you need to do is on your reports is just go in there and change the contact information, or you can just delete these if you want. They're not really that important, but you probably don't want to see my unit stuff all over your reports, so up to you. But you'll want to change each of the reports, these headers on each of these different reports to reflect your wings information. So that's part of the setup that you'll want to do. Not a high priority thing. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't change any of the functionality of the database, but something you'll want to do. A couple other things. So this is the data that imports off of those Excel files. Your GU data, current, your alpha roster, and then there's a couple of ancillary tables like the separated. I mentioned there was functionality that if you ran a report, your Social Security missing report right here, this would show you any Social Security numbers that show up on your GU that aren't in your personnel listing would show up here, and you could add that information. So once you've done that research, you wouldn't have to do it anymore. It creates that in the database as well and pulls that information. Let's see what else is there. That's really about it. Again, if you're going to have other people, you're going to train other people to do this, I would recommend that you go back and click off of the hidden objects. So that way you're not seeing all the other stuff that's in there. And this is really all you need to maintain the database. But basically, once you've got that set up, you've gotten this far with all of your information. If you made it to this point, you're good to go. Everything should work pretty fine from this point. I am also going to go ahead and do a demo real quick of some of the other things. Your GUI analysis workbook. Again, I gave an overview of this in the first video, but you can also create new pivot tables or information based on maybe what you want to see versus what our unit is using. So I'll show you an example if you're somewhat savvy with pivot tables. Well, sorry about that. You got to copy the whole thing. There we go. All right, so I'm going to paste over this, and you've got a pivot table in here, and now you've got all these different categories in the query that you can pull in if you want to see. Maybe you want to see by group, so you can see by group. You can do virtually the options here are unlimited. You can do whatever you want to do here utilizing these fields. They're all here. So that's the GUI analysis workbook. And again, I mentioned that there's a lot of different things. This is just what we use internally just to sort of keep stats. And we've got our stakeholder brief here. It'll keep a running history. Each time you do an import, it's going to write a new date to this historical data table. And you can actually get a historical trend by group here. So let's just hit all here. There we go. So here's everything on our GUI by unit based on what shows up. So all right, I'm going to go ahead and click out of that. Let's get into the real payoff here, which is the GUI letters. So the way the GUI letters work, this is a Word document. You're going to want to get in here, and it may ask you to select your database. If you need to, go ahead and select your database. So go navigate out to your C drive, and it should be a pretty easy an easy find here, but just select your GUI database here and it should work just fine. So it's going to connect to a query inside the database, and it's going to give you every record that shows up in that query. This particular query only does travel orders. I don't have a follow-up for any of the non-order, and this only pulls overdue orders as well. So anything that's met the return date plus 5 days will show up, and if it's in progress or the return date hasn't been met yet, then it won't show up on here. So if you recall, we had 241 on our unit, 241 total GUI lines, but it's only pulling 195 because that's the number that are overdue. This data is old. So, this is a higher number of overdue than we actually currently have. So just bear that in mind. It does use the current date, but it's using old data. So it's quite a few of them based on that are calculating as old. But if you're not familiar with the Word features as far as the mail merge goes, you might want to look into that before you get too crazy in here. But you can modify this. Any of the stuff that is outside of this box right here, you can modify this to say whatever. You're obviously going to want to change your unit, but you can change this to say whatever you want it to say. It's entirely up to you. This is the stuff you probably don't want to fool with too much, because this is what is the merge fields, and these are the variable ones that change with each record. I wouldn't get too crazy with your RA list down here either. This is another field that's a merge field. So I recommend, if you have questions, holler at me or do some research on the internet or hit up on the Facebook page, and if you've got some questions on that. But again, just don't modify any of the merge fields and you should be good to go. You can actually see, I think there's a way to actually highlight the merge fields. I'm not really sure. Oh, there you go. So anything that has these arrows is a merge field, so you can see what the merge fields are. So as long as you're not messing with those, you're fine. But if you do mess with those, it'll certainly don't mess with the email, because that's what it's going to use when you finally merge it. But basically, this is the list, and once you're done and ready to go, you can click on the Finish and Merge button up here and hit Send Email Messages. You're going to want to have your Outlook open. I'm going to go ahead and do this at home. Fortunately, I've got a bunch of bogus emails in there, so you'll get kind of a taste of what happens when you do this. But have your Outlook open so you're ready to go before you execute this next step. But let's just go ahead and send email messages. I'm only going to do records 1 through 10, but when we do this periodically, we do it the entire record set. We would send out 195 emails. I recommend HTML, but you may want to experiment with this just to see which one works the best for your needs. A lot of different options. There's 3 different options there. I prefer HTML or the attachment, but a lot of it depends on what your individual IT settings are at your unit and what you can get away with. Hopefully, they haven't blocked any of the of this functionality at your wing. Otherwise, you may have problems with the automatic email. But it works at our unit, so hopefully it works at yours. But I'm only going to go ahead and merge through 10, records 1 through 10. So basically, at the point that you hit OK, you're going to see it start churning. And you can see my count is going up on my output box, and it's sending email after email. Boom, 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 boom. And then it goes to your sent. And I'll start getting records back that that was not a valid email address, but you can see how it goes. This is what they will see. And you want to also make sure that whoever is sending this out, these are going to go after whoever's profile you're logged in as. So unless you want to get a bunch of email, if you're just a tech guy and you're not really the person that's performing the follow-up, you may want to work with your your travel pay folks if they're going to be doing the follow-up or whatnot. I would recommend that whoever is responsible for performing the follow-up, you go with them and you execute it using their email address, so that way they can perform the follow-up. You also might consider an organizational email box, so that way and actually send it from a profile. But that's going to be some advanced stuff that you're going to have to get some things set up at your wing in order to do that. So that's just something else to consider. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. That's how it works. An overview of how you set this thing up, and let's talk about a couple other things. So basically, the next thing is how frequently do you do this? We do it once a month at our wing, but it's up to you how often you want to do this. Each time you export from your Chris query is going to give you a new data refresh, and like I said, you don't have to refresh both of them at the same time. You could just refresh your Chris query and leave your personnel, as an old file, and do that once a week or once a month. I'd recommend at least once a month getting an update on that, but you don't want to inundate your FSS folks with sending you files all the time. So that's up to you. But like I said, we run through and send emails out once a month. Our unit, we have drill once a month, and we always sync up our letters to go out during drill, so that way when everybody's at our wing performing their UTAs or their unit training assemblies, their once a month duty, they're getting those emails. So couple other things, best practices. I'll go over a couple other things inside the database, so let me open that up. Sometimes you have to you have to close out some of these linked folders because Access doesn't like you to have live links to the database open at the same time. So sometimes you have to close your Excel file, your Word file, if you're trying to get back in the database and trying to do stuff. So you can also edit your linkages to your groups here, but keep in mind it imports off of that Excel file inside the data sources. So a lot of times you'll overwrite what you've done. Also, for out processing, I'd recommend sending this report on a frequent basis to the folks in your pay and travel sections, and so when people are out processing, they can reference this list and see if they've got any open orders on there. Just something to think about. Let's see what else. Again, I talked about the separated members. Follow-up. So this is a feature that's there. It pulls a query, and you can enter follow-up on a particular order. So if you've gotten a response from John Doe, number 542, you can collect delete, will file, does not wish to file, whatever the case is, and you can enter a comment. Just something that you can keep track of if you want to. Again, it's not really fully developed. We don't really use it all that much, but it's there if you wish to use it. That's pretty much it. If you've got any specific questions, hit me up again on Facebook, Global, or via email. And I wish you guys the best of luck with this. I hope it helps your units. And holler at me if you have any questions. Thanks a lot.